Injuring Eternity by Martin Wilsey. I was acting under direct orders from Chancellor Dalton. None of this is my fault. Yes, I lied. I had to lie. The prisoner had to believe we were on Earth and not a moon around Saturn. These weapons we were developing were not allowed on Earth. Solstice 31 Incident Investigation Testimony Transcript. Thomas McDonald, Senior Research and Development Engineer, Material Sciences, Artificial Gravity Specialist. Tom McDonald stood on the grav plate apron just outside the hangar. He hated putting on a pressure suit. He always wanted to take a piss and scratch his nose as soon as it was sealed closed. Without it, though, he would not step off the apron that maintained a perfect 1G feel. Some people liked low gravity. Not Tom. Tom hated it. Which was odd, considering he was an expert in artificial gravity, or AG technology. The moon of Saturn, called Rhea, where the R&D facility was located, had full facility AG. It must have cost a mint. He turned and looked back at the enormous opening to the hangar behind him. Well, at least it appeared to be open. It was 90 meters wide and 30 meters tall. A band of light traced the opening and marked the line between vacuum and atmosphere. There was a field 10 millimeters thick of gravity chaos in that wall plane that he could just walk through. The light had nothing to do with the field, though. The light and the field would still be there even if the base lost power. He had designed it. He still had no idea how it worked, even though he'd been credited with inventing it. Today was the final test of his latest project, the G-Rail gun. It was an amplified gravity-based directional weapon. It was the most expensive thing he had ever created. Now it was in final testing. Only the full power test remained. His three assistants called it Grendel because it was a monster and could kill a lot of people. The Chancellor liked to call it the Grail. Tom was uncomfortable with the name Grail. It held too many religious connotations. "All right, you bunch of monkeys. Are you ready?" McDonald asked. The techs were in the lab, monitoring the test. "Yes, sir. All systems are standing by," Kristen Vittori replied. She was the team lead. Tom thought about her as he listened to her voice. She was a professional, stone-cold bitch, with no interpersonal skills. It was too bad because she was beautiful in that modern 2G way. Super fit. McDonald couldn't help but remember how great she looked naked. Fortunately, none of the rest of the staff suspected how she'd gotten herself promoted to team lead. "I'm firing it up," McDonald said as he activated the weapon. It was the same size and basic shape as a French carbine, but the damn thing weighed more than 11 kilograms when not powered up. The onboard inertial dampeners had the benefit of making it feel weightless when the power was on. The biggest problem was that the higher the power settings, the slower it was to move so that it felt like you were dragging it through wet cement at the upper settings. It fought you. A change made to the software, however, had seemed to solve this problem. Now, as he selected the firing solution power, nothing changed until the moment he pulled the trigger. The standard heads-up display HUD targeting had also been employed to make usage even more straightforward. This very same issue made it impossible to use the weapon on the higher settings in a craft in motion near a planetary body big enough to have its own gravity well. In fact, Watkins had been killed when the system tore itself out of the shuttle he was flying. It wasn't recoil, it just stopped dead in space, and the momentum of the ship itself tore it away from the suddenly stationary Grail cannon. He was another casualty to rushing. "Here we go, you chicken shits. Target number 1 test. Power set to 4 of 10. Tom had to remind them that they had all refused to do any full-power tests. The first target was an old surface tractor that they had towed to the target range. Firing. Tom raised the weapon and squeezed the trigger. There was no sound, no recoil, no nothing. The invisible impact struck the tractor just above the driver's side wheel. A perfectly round, basketball-sized hole appeared in the fender, and the entire engine block and front right side exploded out, sending debris all the way to the distant mountainside 2 kilometers away. The weapon moved quickly and efficiently to acquire target number 2. It was the remains of Watkins' shuttle, parked at the base of a cliff about 0.4 kilometers away. Power settings to 6. Firing, he said. Again, no sound, no recoil, not even a vibration. But this time he felt a momentary freeze of the gun in mid-air. It was as if he could have hung there suspended from it. The entire shuttle disappeared, and in its place, there was suddenly a gaping hole in the cliff face. "Did you feel that, sir?" Vittori said, with a hint of fear in her voice. "Damn right I did. Through my boots. I just punched a 10-meter-wide hole in that cliff face. That hole must be 25 meters deep. What's left of that shuttle lines the back of that new cave." McDonald laughed as a slow avalanche began falling in Rhea's low gravity. "Cranking it up to 8. Send the drone target." A drone, the size of a supply container, hovered into view. Tom knew it was full of rocks and other material, and it had way too many strobes on it. It wasn't tough to see. White was easy to see even this far from the sun. "Target altitude is 4.2 kilometers, Vittori said. The targeting software was running and had the drone targeted. Tom raised the rifle and pulled the trigger. He knew nothing would happen until the targeting software tag was aligned. The rifle froze in place for a full 2 seconds. Then the drone just disappeared. "Holy shit! Did you see that?" McDonald said. "Sir, the sensors indicate that the drone and all its mass has been reduced to a fine powder. 42 metric tons. Vittori was in awe. "Power is down to 30%. I recommend replacing the power cell before the full power test. You would be so dead if Grendel's dampeners failed for lack of power." McDonald powered down the rifle, knowing she was right. It was consuming power exponentially at higher settings. The gun became heavy again when he powered it down, and he let it hang from the sling as he pulled out a fresh power cell magazine. They had cleverly made them the same form factor as the Franch carbine ammo magazines, so that soldiers could carry spares in existing pouches. Tom slammed in the fresh cell and powered the rifle back up. It became weightless in his hands again. "Another drone, please." "Full power test," McDonald said. He could not keep the fear from his voice. "Sir, we were thinking," Vittori said in an uncertain voice, "if the power pack does not have enough juice to drive the inertial dampener, there could be the potential of massive recoil or even some kind of catastrophic failure." McDonald already knew this. "Sir, please move to the edge of the apron and turn so the base is not directly behind you or in front of you." Vittori sounded like she was about to cry. "Are you sure you don't want to study the data first?" He shook his head. They were too far behind schedule. "Tom, don't shoulder it." It was Matthews who spoke. "I'm suited up and already in the hangar. Use the HUD to target. If it rips your finger off, your smart suit will seal the glove with an automatic compression tourniquet." "Damn it, let's do this." Tom walked to the edge of the apron and turned 90 degrees. It was a smart precaution. "Adjust the drone path for the new vista, Vittori." "Yes, sir. Adjusting." McDonald could see the drone coming around. It was lower this time. He tagged it in his targeting HUD, brought the G-rail to bear on the drone, and pulled the trigger. He wasn't perfectly on target, so when he went to adjust the weapon to be on target, it wouldn't budge. He let off the trigger so he could move it again. This time, he positioned it so the target would fly into the weapon's path and pulled the trigger. He waited, watching the drone approach the crosshairs. When the drone crossed into the weapon's sights, the weapon fired. McDonald was knocked from his feet. Not from any recoil, but from the quake in the surface that resulted when the distant mountain peaks were completely sheared off. The G-rail hung there for 2 more seconds before falling to the apron. Its power display faced McDonald, reading 6% in red. He could hear alarms in his comms unit. "Vittori, what's happening?" "The shockwave cracked the seals on 3 outer airlocks and an empty residence. We're holding pressure here, though," Vittori sputtered. She was suddenly on the edge of panic, all professionalism having vanished. "Fuck me raw, Tom. The primary long-range Questcom array is gone." "What do you mean, gone? Did we sever a cable?" It was dawning on him as he stood and looked in the direction of the distant communication facility. The entire communication installation had been beyond the drone. "Oh my God, no real-time comms?" he said. "Turn to powder, sir." Vittori was collecting herself now. Matthews stepped up beside McDonald. He had retrieved the G-rail and shut it down. Removing the depleted power pack, he handed it to his stunned boss and said, "Are you all right, sir?" McDonald turned to Matthews. "I want that fucking thing in the vault with all the power packs, and then get your ass on a shuttle and assess the damage." He looked back at the hangar opening. "Take Hearn with you. No discussions over the radio. It's all monitored by that godforsaken AI." McDonald stepped through the grav wall into the hangar. Matthews followed reluctantly. McDonald took off his helmet and scratched his nose. Eyes lowered, he said to Hearn, "I think I just killed Emerson, Tyler, and Garcia at the comm station." "They were all stupid assholes anyway," Hearn said indifferently as he admired the weapon. "Tyler was a mole for the Chancellor." "Emerson, Tyler, and Garcia are confirmed dead. They all had full-time comlink HUDs, and they all flashed off at the same moment," Vittori said. "Even worse, we have lost the quantum entanglement synchronous transmitter. The 2 of them were alone in the control center, and she could not meet McDonald's gaze. No real-time 2-way comms with Earth. She felt responsible. Good, he thought to himself. He was going to blame Vittori in his report anyway. He looked forward to her efforts to avoid that blame. She was fit, had excellent grooming, and was durable. "I want a status report ready for conventional transmission in 30 minutes. I've already sent a burst transmission reporting that we are not dead and that the prisoner is secure. I do not want any of the Chancellor's ships in my sky. Is that clear?" He was leaning on her hard. "Sir, Tom, I'm sorry." She finally looked up. The cold professional scientist was gone. Her eyes welled with unshed tears. McDonald placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know. We'll sort it out later. In private." He paused, squeezing her shoulder. "We don't have the bandwidth on the secondary comms, so don't send the raw data. But tell them why we are not sending it. It would take 78 minutes to get there." "Yes, sir." Vittori was collecting herself. "Vittori, Kristen, I think we were set up." He pointed his thumb over his shoulder at the base. "I think that son of a bitch knew something like this would happen, and he did nothing to stop it." He could see the lie take hold in her eyes. She had been hoping that somehow this wasn't her fault. He would reassure her later in his quarters. Hard and fast. An hour later, McDonald walked into the prison cell dome. He was the only one allowed in here. It was a pain in the ass, but it was the only way to keep the prisoner's nature, let alone his existence, a secret. The entire dome was a simulation of the sky above Detroit, day and night, in all weather. In the center of the dome was a structure that McDonald thought of as an elaborate movie set. It didn't look like much on the outside, but it didn't need to. He entered the facade and walked down a long corridor that made it appear he was in a dirty warehouse. The door slid open, and he entered a large room that resembled the inside of a warehouse. Subtle clues everywhere indicated that it was in Detroit. High, dirty windows provided filtered light as McDonald proceeded to the center, where there was a huge, clear box enclosing an area 7 meters on a side. Industrial lighting hung from the ceiling above the cell. There was a man in the box. A thin mattress and a neatly made bed lay on an elevated section. Opposite, a tabletop was attached to the wall, beside a stump of a stool that rose from the floor. In one corner, there was a basic toilet and sink. The entire thing hovered above the floor on 3 clear legs. McDonald climbed onto the visitor's platform that was near but not touching the cell. He pounded a button on a console there, and the freestanding screen that showed stupid sitcoms all day went dark. Another button activated the intercom, and Tom wasted no time in punching it. You fucking knew this would happen. People died, you bastard. McDonald maintained control with effort. But it worked. Perfectly, didn't it? I felt it. The prisoner looked over at McDonald. How's the wife? She's sure as hell not going to be happy about all the overtime I'm going to have to put in as a result of this fuck-up. McDonald sounded like he might be about to lose it. As if the goddamn commute from Boston to this shithole wasn't bad enough. You will tell me how to fix the G-rail spread, or I swear to the Dalai fucking Lama that I will keep you in the dark and not feed you for 6 months again. No clean clothes, no water, no vids, no food, and no heat. You will love the winter here. McDonald was growling by the end. Maybe a new bullet hole every day for goddamn good measure. Okay, relax. We are almost done. Bring the design up on the big screen. He turned towards the black screen. Don't you tell me to relax, McDonald growled as he activated the monitor and brought up the design schematic. You bastard. Remember version 9.3 that we scrapped? Bring that one up. The prisoner waited patiently as McDonald brought it up. There. Why? That design was a non-starter. No way to house the dampeners. McDonald remembered. It had only been 2 years ago. Look at the emitters. Just the business end of the muzzle. They adjusted based on the power settings. Is any of this coming back? He was so smug about it. McDonald could already see how it could work. Automatically, as well as manually. It would focus the G-rail emission. Why didn't you tell me this before, asshole? He spat. Now you can see their usefulness as remote fixed position emplacements. He turned to McDonald and stood to move directly to the wall of his cell. I bet it wouldn't even fire without a fresh power cell at full power. You now know that, as a rapid target acquisition rifle, the max power setting should be a 2 or 3 at most. Say emergency power as high as a 4 if you are going after armored vehicles or buildings. At 2, it will take out any armor with ease and last for 300 shots. What are you leaving out? I know you're leaving out something, so give it up now, or I swear it'll be cold and dark in here by nightfall. McDonald was dead serious. The prisoner could tell. Never fire one of these in the atmosphere above power setting 2. The sound volume and concussion would be a problem. He said it like he was giving away a secret. and never from a moving ship in a gravity well. Too late, asshole. A new Quest Comms unit arrived 4 hours later. It must have been seized from a base on Saturn somewhere by the soldiers that delivered it. Chancellor. He has no idea we know who and what he is. McDonald paused. And what he's capable of. He swallowed hard. Temporal physics is not my best field, but he still lets things slip. He can only see the future that happens before him, in his field of view. It is possible to deceive him. The best example is how he lets things slip about my wife. Things he couldn't know because they're lies. Oh, tell me. He was thinking as he sat. He was not looking into the camera. We can, in fact, lie to him, but only if he never finds out the truth in the future. I have not seen my wife for nearly 2 years, the entire time I have been on Rhea. He has no idea how I really feel. It's been the best 2 years of my life. McDonald needed sleep badly, and he forgot himself for a minute. She is such a cow and a shrew. He shook his head to clear it. The point is, the prisoner has only predicted the lies I have fed him, or will feed him. You've done an excellent job, Tom. I may take care of that little problem for you as a bit of a bonus. Vittori was very grateful that she had not been thrown under the bus. Very grateful. It was trivial to make the modifications. The final prototype was recalibrated with the new lower power maximum. The new automatic choke worked perfectly. It could even be overridden, so you could intentionally create a wide field of mayhem. The Chancellor of Earth ordered him to bring the prototype and the final design for the fabricators to him personally. It was an 8-day trip back to Earth, if he didn't spare the fuel. He would be home just in time for Christmas. ETA, December 24th, 2631. It was 3 days after the Solstice 31 incident. Upon arriving, he was forced to dock at Freedom Station or be shot down. It was there that he discovered that the Chancellor of Earth had been assassinated by the very same man who had killed 115 million innocent people. He also learned Rhea Base was gone by then as well. Something had gone horribly wrong there. Everyone thought he was dead. He paid cash for a locker on the station. Now he understood why these people liked their freedom and privacy so much. He locked up the rifle and the Rhea AI module he carried and went in search of the nearest bar. He needed a drink. This has been Injuring Eternity by Martin Wilsey, a Solstice 31 Saga short story. Audio and print copyright by Martin Wilsey. All rights reserved.